And welcome back. As you can see here, I'm working on the trailing edge of the rudder skins. This is a wedge that you have to cut down to size, so you'll attach it with clecos and make a mark as I'm doing here, both on the top end and a little bit on the bottom end there. And just cut that down to size once you get it marked off, and then you'll start making the correct preparations for the trailing edge wedge. Ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to drill through and do all the match drilling from the rudders, the skins, and then you also have to countersink each hole so that the skin, when it's dimpled, will sit flush with the trailing edge so you can rivet all together. So the trick is when you're going to countersink, you want to countersink perpendicular to the surface of the wedge, but since it's at an angle, you have to somehow get it to sit level when you're using the drill. You can put the countersink cage on a handheld drill and try it that way. My hand's not steady enough that I can guarantee that it's going to be perpendicular every time. So I used my drill press there in the background. But what I did is took the portion that I cut off, and then I doubled it over so that basically it makes two perpendicular surfaces there. And then you cleco those together and use my drill press. So that helped to get the countersinking correct. Here I am just cutting it down. The instructions also have you mark along the edge of the trailing edge on the skin, and what you're going to do is you're going to scuff up that portion of the trailing edge for a place for the double-sided tape that you're going to put onto this. It's a place for it to adhere to well. Now, Van's Aircraft website, they have a model of double-sided tape that you should use. It's a 3M product. I didn't realize this when I went to look for double-sided tape, and I've only seen double-sided tape to be thicker than normal tape. And so I went and bought some at a local Ace hardware store, and I used that when I put the trailing edge together. Well, the problem is it's like I said, it's a thicker double-sided tape, and when you put it together, it made everything too thick on the trailing edge, and so there's a gap because of the extra thickness of the double-sided tape. And I tried to flush rivet a couple of the rivets there, and they just didn't sit. It never the rivets that you're supposed to use that it calls out in the plans are just too small. They were too short to be able to go through both the skins, the wedge, and the two widths of the double-sided tape, because there's double-sided tape on both sides of the wedge. And so by the time it stuck through, there's a very small amount of rivets sticking out, so you really can't get anything to use a rivet gun on. And then I tried, and it just didn't stick. So I ended up having to take it all apart. And in a process, I ruined the wedge, so I had to reorder the wedge, hoping to get that today as I'm editing this video. So anyway, some of the things to think about when you do order the double-sided tape. Look on Van's Aircraft, their website, and look at the model of double-sided tape that they recommend you use. And it's a lot thinner, and it's also a lot more strength to it than what you would find at Ace Hardware. It's like I said, it's 3M tape, and you can find it on Amazon has it. A lot of websites will have it, but just make sure you look for the right type of tape, and the Van's website gives you the model to look for. So while I'm editing this video, I'm realizing just now that I'm actually making a mistake right here, and so I'm glad I reordered this piece anyways. What I'm doing right now is I'm drilling the holes for the trailing edge with the, I believe it's a size 40 drill bit, but I'm not doing it correctly. The instructions have you, in fact there's a big note, talks about ensuring that you drill 90 degrees to the chord of the trailing edge. Meaning, in other words, if you draw a line from the very front, the tip of the wedge to the middle of the wider section of the wedge, and draw a line right down the middle of it, if you're looking down from the top, you want to drill a 90 degree hole to that line. And so if you're drilling perpendicular to the surface, you're actually drilling at an angle through the wedge, and that's obviously not what you want to do. So you want to you're going to have to cleco to the skins, or at the very least try to hold it in stable enough and straight enough while you drill. You're not going to be able to use a drill press unless you make some kind of mock-up to hold it at the proper angle. But what I would recommend, what I'm going to do when I get my replacement part, is just cleco it to the skin, and then just hold the rudder and drill it while it's in place to get 90 degrees to the chord. What you do want to do is use the double up method when you go to countersink, because you do want the surface of the trailing edge to be perpendicular to the countersink cage, and that way you can use the drill press to do that with. So anyway, that's a mistake I've just now realized that I had done, and now that I've realized my mistake, I'll be able to do it correctly when I get the replacement part. As you notice, it's now gone from day to night. I've edited quite a bit of drilling out. It's a long process because the piece that I had to double up with was the remains, what you trim off in one of the first steps here, and so it was a very short piece, and I kept having to move it along, so it just made for a longer process. But so anyway, you'll go through, you cleco the trailing edge to the skins and put them together, and when you mock it all together, match drill while it's installed, then remove it, then take it over to a drill press doubled up with another piece so that the surface is perpendicular to the drill, and then countersink all the holes that way. And then, like I said, make sure you're using a thin double-sided tape, not the standard, what I would call the padded double-sided tape. Just because it's too wide if you use the padded double-sided tape, and it's a heck of a time if you wait until you have it all installed and try to change it when the skins are riveted together like I did. It makes for a very challenging effort to remove the double-sided tape and the wedge itself, and unfortunately in the process I ended up bending the wedge, and that's why I had to reorder it to begin with. So anyway, here I'm working on the rudder horn. It's a support piece for the rudder horn, a brace, and just trying to line it up, make sure it's all going to fit with the bottom rib there. And one of the things I found is easier to put that in and then put the other half of the bottom rib on after the horn brace is in place. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. And here you just see me clecoing everything together on the bottom end, and then putting that second half of the bottom rib, clecoing it back in place. And the whole thing here is just to get everything matched up and getting ready for the next few steps coming up. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let this video run out. Again, for those who are following, I appreciate you guys taking a look and following along as I make these videos. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, please leave them down below, and I'll get back as soon as I'm able. It helps me to find information for questions that people may have that I may not have thought of. So anyway, we'll see you next time around.